Beneath the snowy mountains stands an ancient temple, where the pine breeze gently stirs and the chanting of sutras lingers softly in the air. An elderly monk, with a benevolent countenance, white hair, and a youthful face, sits beside a withered well in the courtyard, recounting past stories to a few young disciples. "Master, I have heard that you traveled to India to study in your youth. Did you have the opportunity to hear the teachings of Bodhisattva Nagarjuna?" A young monk respectfully clasped his hands together and asked. The old monk smiled gently, stroked his long beard, and said, "Not only have I heard of it, but I have also studied for many years in those forest hermitages, and fortunately, I have listened to Master Nagarjuna's explanation of the greatest obstacles on the path of practice." What exactly is the obstacle that hinders so many seekers on the path? The monk's eyes sparkle with the light of aspiration. The Perfect Enlightenment Sutra states that all sentient beings, since beginningless time, have possessed various affections and desires, thus resulting in samsara. The old monk's gaze grew profound. The second, Bodhisattva Nagarjuna, pointed out that the three greatest obstacles on the path of practice are visual lust, mental lust, and conceptual lust. Upon visually perceiving form, afflictive attachment arises. The mind follows the thoughts and generates clinging. Consciousness becomes immersed and unable to extricate itself. These three obstacles are like three towering mountains, blocking sentient beings from the path to liberation. An old monk shares reflections on his life. Bodhisattva Nagarjuna himself was once troubled by the three obstacles in his youth, but later, due to favorable circumstances, he attained a method to overcome them. For 1,000 years, it has helped countless practitioners overcome obstacles. Today, let me tell you this extraordinary story for you. In 2nd century India, although Buddhism flourished, the moral trends of society had begun to decline. A young Brahmin youth was wandering through the bustling marketplace. He is the one later honored as Nagarjuna, the common patriarch of the 8 schools. But at that time, he was merely an ordinary person immersed in worldly desires. Nagarjuna was born into a wealthy Brahmin family in South India. He was exceptionally intelligent and, by the age of 7, could recite the 4 Vedas. He was well-versed in various disciplines such as astronomy, geography, and medicine. At the age of 12, he was sent to the renowned Nalanda monastery to study and soon became a prodigy admired by all. However, extraordinary intelligence did not guide Nagarjuna onto the right path. Instead, it led him into deeper confusion due to pride and complacency. At the age of 20, he, along with 3 close friends, privately left the monastery due to dissatisfaction with the monastic discipline and constraints, and went to the bustling city to indulge in pleasures. Nagarjuna glanced over and saw a man pointing at a dancer at the street corner, his eyes shimmering with a strange light. Nagarjuna followed the direction pointed by someone's hand and saw a group of elaborately dressed dancing girls performing. Their graceful movements enchanted many passers-by, causing them to stop and watch. Nagarjuna's gaze was involuntarily drawn, and a sudden flame of desire ignited within his heart. From that point on, the 4 of them began a 3-month period of indulgence, exchanging their family wealth for fine wine and women, daily immersed in sensory pleasures, completely forgetting their original purpose of spiritual cultivation. One day, Nagarjuna and his friends attended a banquet at the home of a wealthy merchant. After several rounds of wine, everyone had already become intoxicated and drowsy. After one night, Nagarjuna looked at the singing girl beside him, and a wrongful thought unexpectedly arose in his heart. This singing girl is the favored concubine of a wealthy merchant, as beautiful as a celestial being, causing countless men to lose their hearts and minds. Nagarjuna, feeling the effects of the wine, cast a glance at the singing girl, subtly conveying his thoughts. Unexpectedly, the singing girl even smiled back at him and quietly told him the location of the back door of the mansion. After the banquet ended and the moon reached its zenith, Nagarjuna went alone to the agreed-upon place. The singing girl was indeed waiting there, guiding him through the dark corridor to an elegant little room. "Young master, please wait a moment. I will join you after my bath." The singing girl spoke softly, then entered the inner chamber. Nagarjuna sat on the soft couch, his heart beating faster, both eager and nervous. Moment by moment, time passed, yet the singing maiden had not appeared. He grew impatient, tiptoed to the door of the inner chamber, and peered inside through the crack. The moment I saw it, it was like a thunderclap on a clear day, and my entire body instantly turned cold. Upon seeing the singing girl remove her floral garment, it was revealed that her body was ravaged by illness, covered with pustules and ulcers, emitting a foul stench. She was using fragrant powder to conceal these wounds, preparing to don her splendid robes again and return to Nagarjuna's side. Nagarjuna suddenly awakened, as if from a dream. He quietly slipped out of the small room, the flames of desire in his heart already extinguished, replaced instead by profound disgust and fear. Form and appearance are illusory and deceptive, all manifestations of illusion. Nagarjuna murmured to himself, hastily leaving his residence, running swiftly back to his dwelling. That night, Nagarjuna tossed and turned, unable to sleep. He recalled the master's teaching at the rotten camel temple. Form is no different from emptiness. Emptiness is no different from form. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. It was only at this moment that he truly comprehended the profound meaning of this phrase. The next day, Nagarjuna found 3 friends and told them that he had decided to return to the monastery for practice. Friends did not understand his sudden transformation and mocked him for being timid and fearful. "You do not understand. What I saw last night was not only the true face of a woman, but also the ugliness within my own heart." Nagarjuna solemnly said, "The beauty we chase after is nothing but an illusion." Nagarjuna returned alone to the Nalanda monastery, confessed his mistakes to his teacher, and requested to be accepted again. Seeing his genuine repentance, the master gave him a chance, but the condition was that he must undergo a rigorous trial. "From today onwards, you shall begin by cleaning the temple courtyard, continuing this for 3 months. Take only 1 meal per day, do not lie down alone at night, and recite sutras day and night. 3 months later, I will test you again," the master said, then turned and left. Nagarjuna, following his teacher's instructions, began a rigorous life of repentance. In the initial days, he felt physically unwell, often experiencing hunger and fatigue, but he gritted his teeth and persevered. Whenever lustful thoughts arose, he immediately recited sutras and meditated to divert his attention. After a month, Nagarjuna's body gradually adapted to the arduous life, but the lustful thoughts in his mind still frequently troubled him. Every time the night grows deep and quiet, those indulgent memories emerge in his mind, making it difficult for him to fall asleep. One deep night, Nagarjuna, unable to bear the restlessness within his mind, rose and went to meditate by the pond outside. The moonlight shone on the tranquil surface of the water, resembling a clear mirror. Nagarjuna gazed at his own reflection in the water and suddenly attained a realization. "The afflictions I suffer are nothing but shadows of past experiences, like this reflection in the water, visible yet intangible. If one can understand its illusory nature, what is there to cling to?" This sudden enlightenment enabled Nagarjuna to find a method to confront and overcome lustful thoughts. From that time onward, whenever impure thoughts arise, he regarded them as reflections in the water, no longer resisting them, but observing them with wisdom, and thus the impure thoughts naturally dissipated. After the 3-month period ended, the master summoned Nagarjuna once again, expressing satisfaction with his performance and advising him to travel to the great snowy mountain in the south to seek out a venerable monk named Kanadeva for deeper guidance. Nagarjuna, following his teacher's instructions, set out alone for the great snowy mountain. The journey was arduous. He weathered storms and crossed numerous mountains and ridges, finally locating Kanadeva in a secluded cave. Kanadeva was an emaciated old monk, yet his eyes were bright and piercing, revealing at once that he was an enlightened master. Nagarjuna, I have been waiting for you for a long time. As soon as Kanadeva met him, he mentioned Nagarjuna's name, which astonished him greatly. What does the master know my name? Nagarjuna asked with puzzlement. Kanadeva smiled gently, confident in his heart, knowing that heaven and earth are all aware. You have come here seeking a method to overcome lustful thoughts, haven't you? Nagarjuna nodded respectfully. Yes, although I have attained some understanding, I have not yet completely freed myself from the bondage of lustful thoughts. I humbly seek your guidance, Master. Kanadepa's expression was solemn, for lustful thoughts are the greatest obstacle on the path of practice and cannot be eliminated in a single day. You have begun to understand the illusory nature of lustful thoughts, which is a good beginning. Next, I will teach you deeper methods of cultivation, but you must vow to follow them for life and never transgress. Nagarjuna solemnly vows that his disciples will faithfully adhere to the Master's teachings throughout their lives, never deviating from them. Kanadeva nodded in satisfaction and began to impart the secret method. The three causes of lustful thoughts are the eye, the mind, and consciousness. The eye perceives form and gives rise to attachment. The mind follows the form and generates thoughts, continuously thinking without cessation. To sever lustful thoughts, one must first clearly understand their arising process, and then cut them off at the root. Just as Kanadeva was about to explain further, a sudden commotion of footsteps and laughter echoed from outside the cave. Nagarjuna's expression tightened, sensing a subtle shift in the atmosphere within the cave. At the cave entrance appeared 7 women of exquisite beauty, holding incense and flowers as they walked slowly forward. Venerable, who are these people? Nagarjuna turned to his mentor beside him and inquired. Kanadeva's gaze was as piercing as a torch. Nagarjuna, you have mastered the 84,000 Dharma gates, and today is the final test. The eyes remain unmoved by beautiful forms, thus cutting off lust arising from the eye. The mind recognizes their illusory nature and is not deluded, thus cutting off lust originating from the mind. The intention abides in purity and remains undisturbed, thus cutting off lust arising from intention. If these 3 defilements are not completely eradicated, even with wisdom as vast as the ocean, liberation cannot be attained. I have 3 Dharma methods to assist you, but you must understand that there is a fundamental, invincible Dharma beyond them. Nagarjuna's expression was focused. What is the invincible, fundamental Dharma? How does it differ from the 3 dharmas? Kanadeva said in a deep voice, this is a secret rarely heard in 1,000 years, capable of naturally dissolving the 3 defilements and fundamentally resolving the problem. Kanadeva took a deep breath and continued. The indestructible fundamental Dharma is neither supernatural power nor mantra, but the prajñā wisdom that thoroughly comprehends the true nature of lustful thoughts. The reason why lustful thoughts can bind sentient beings lies fundamentally in their ignorance of its true nature, being deluded by appearances. If one can see the essence through the illusion, lustful thoughts will naturally dissolve like ice under the sunlight. Nagarjuna respectfully asked, Master, please reveal the true nature. Kanadeva nodded and explained, the essence of lustful thoughts has 3 aspects. First, emptiness. Second, suffering. Third, impermanence. Emptiness refers to the lack of inherent existence in the objects of lustful thoughts. The beautiful forms you see, the melodious sounds you hear, and the pleasures you imagine are all like dreams, illusions, bubbles, and shadows. If one can deeply perceive the nature of emptiness, lustful thoughts will have no place to arise. Suffering, as it is said, refers to the fact that lustful thoughts may bring temporary pleasure, but they inevitably lead to longer-lasting pain. Just like drinking alcohol, it brings momentary pleasure, but upon waking, one suffers a headache. Similarly, scratching an itch only makes it itchier. eventually leading to broken skin and bleeding. Lustful thoughts are the same. The deeper one falls into them, the more suffering accumulates. Impermanence means that lustful thoughts and their objects arise and cease in an instant. They never endure permanently. The face we are infatuated with today may wither away tomorrow. The burning desire at this moment can swiftly turn into aversion. If one can deeply contemplate impermanence, one will not be deceived by momentary illusions. The group of beautiful women in the cave suddenly disappeared, as they were actually manifestations of Kanadeva, used to test Nagarjuna's concentration. Now, I will impart to you the three great secret methods: the oppositional eye seal, the mind seal, and the intention seal. The first practice is to counteract eye lust by avoiding close examination. When the eye sees a form and craving arises, one should contemplate the impure nature of that form. Beneath the beautiful visage lies a tumor of white bones. Beneath the smooth skin lie filthy internal organs. A captivating voice is nothing more than the vibration of airflow. This method directly breaks the illusion of attractive forms, leaving the eye no object for sensual attachment. The second dharma, the mindfulness of counting the breath as an antidote to mental sensuality. When the mind is disturbed by external conditions, one should return to the breath and concentrate on the inhalation and exhalation, counting income and expenditure repeatedly from 1 to 10 in a continuous cycle. This dharma can stabilize the restless mind, preventing it from being seized by sensual desires. The third practice is the antidote to mental fabrication, the contemplation of ultimate reality. When a mind is immersed in lustful thoughts and cannot extricate itself, one should directly observe the nature of these thoughts without chasing or resisting them, simply being aware of their arising and passing away. Thoughts arise and pass away like clouds. The mind is like a bright mirror, neither defiled nor pure. This dharma can cause the impulse of fantasy to lose its momentum and naturally dissipate. Nagarjuna respectfully noted down these three dharmas, but he still had doubts in his heart, as the master's teachings on the three dharmas were indeed profound. However, the undefeated path you mentioned just now seems to carry a deeper meaning. Kanadeva also laughed deeply and long, showing his wisdom. Although the three dharmas are profound, they still function as methods of counteraction, involving opposition and control, and have not transcended duality. The true path to invincibility lies in the wisdom of the middle way, which transcends dualistic oppositions. The so-called invincible way, in simple terms, is to subdue the enemy without fighting. It means not confronting lustful thoughts head-on, neither deliberately suppressing nor indulging them, but instead observing them with an equanimous mind and realistic awareness. When you can neither detest lustful thoughts nor cling to them, but simply recognize their true nature as they are, lustful thoughts lose their foundation of existence and naturally dissolve. It is like sunlight shining on an ice cube. Without any resistance, the ice naturally melts into water. Similarly, under the sunlight of prajñā wisdom, the ice of lustful thoughts naturally melts into the clear water of wisdom. Nagarjuna pondered deeply for a long time and suddenly experienced a moment of great clarity. The master said that ultimately there is no lustful thought that needs to be countered, nor is there a self that can counter such lustful thoughts. All phenomena arise due to dependent origination and are intrinsically empty in nature. Kanadeva's nodding was exactly so. You have already realized the essence of the path of invincibility. All dharmas are empty, and lustful thoughts have dissolved into emptiness. When you are able to abide in this wisdom of emptiness, lustful thoughts cannot arise. This is not a mere antidote, but a complete transcendence. However, this state is not achieved overnight. For beginners and intermediate practitioners, it is essential first to skillfully apply the three methods I have taught, focusing and stabilizing the mind, and then gradually experience the wondrous effectiveness of this indestructible path. Nagarjuna respectfully said, "I understand, venerable teacher." "Master, are there any other things I should pay attention to in daily life?" Kanadeva added that in daily life, the following points should also be observed. First, refrain from lustful speech, avoid places of sensual pleasures, and do not look at obscene things. Instead, practice careful mindfulness, especially when alone, remaining vigilant to prevent evil thoughts from taking hold. Secondly, diligently cultivate wholesome practices. When a mind is filled with right mindfulness, it leaves no room for unwholesome thoughts. Fourthly, suppress laziness by frequently associating with virtuous people, using righteous energy to overcome evil influences. Furthermore, lustful thoughts often arise under the following circumstances: when fatigued during leisure time, after a full meal, before and after sleep, and when feeling either elated or dejected. By understanding these principles, one can proactively guard against them, leaving no opportunity for lustful thoughts to arise. Kanadeva handed an ancient scripture to Nagarjuna, saying, "You are exceptionally intelligent and highly perceptive. You should further study the Buddhist theory of emptiness and use wisdom to overcome all attachments." This is the Sanskrit manuscript of the Madhyamaka Karika. You may take it for study and, based on it, develop your own system of thought. Nagarjuna, you will become a great master in the future, propagating the true middle way teachings and dispelling the delusions of all sentient beings. But remember, no matter how profound your knowledge or how deep your practice, never forget the method learned today to counteract lustful thoughts, for it is the foundation of all cultivation. From then on, Nagarjuna practiced asceticism beneath the great snowy mountain, studying the middle way philosophy, and on this foundation, he established his own Madhyamaka doctrine. He integrated the three principles taught by Kanadeva and the path of invincibility into his own practice system. Not only did he completely liberate himself from the bondage of lustful thoughts, but he also documented these methods in his writings and passed them on to future generations. Many years later, Nagarjuna became one of the greatest logicians in the history of Indian Buddhism and was posthumously honored as Bodhisattva Nagarjuna. It is said that a disciple asked him, "Master, what do you think is the greatest obstacle on the path of cultivation?" Bodhisattva Nagarjuna smiled and replied, "Sensual desire of the eyes, sensual desire of the mind, and sensual desire of the intention are the three most difficult obstacles to overcome on the path of practice. However, if one can illuminate emptiness with the wisdom of prajñā, one can transform obstacles into aids and convert afflictions into bodhi." Remember, it is not about suppressing lustful thoughts, but thoroughly understanding their true nature. It is not about confronting lustful thoughts, but transcending their existence. This is the true path to invincibility. After the old monk finished telling the story, silence fell over the courtyard, and all the disciples were immersed in deep contemplation. After a long pause, a young monk spoke up, "Master, does the obstruction of the three poisons spoken of by Bodhisattva Nagarjuna still hold practical significance for us in the modern age?" The old monk nodded. "Of course there is. The teachings of Bodhisattva Nagarjuna transcend time and space, remaining practical to this day. In modern society, the three afflictions of ocular lust, mental lust, and intentional lust merely differ in their forms of manifestation. Their essence remains unchanged. The term "I lust" today may manifest as an obsession with various forms of physical beauty, while mind lust is reflected in a constant pursuit of novelty and stimulation within the mind, accompanied by an insatiable craving for sensual pleasures. Mental fantasy refers to a mind filled with various illusions and desires, incapable of finding tranquility. Another monk asked, "Venerable Master, how can we practice the teachings of Bodhisattva Nagarjuna in our daily lives?" The venerable monk smiled kindly. "A very good question. In daily life, one can practice by applying the contemplation of impurity when faced with sensual desire towards the eyes, seeing through the surface to the truth behind appearances. For example, when you find yourself attracted by certain visual stimuli, remind yourself that this is merely a transient phenomenon, potentially concealing suffering and impurity behind it. When confronted with mental intoxication, practice mindfulness of breathing to return the mind to calmness. Set aside time each day to sit in stillness, focusing on the breath, one inhalation, one exhalation, allowing the mind to rest in the present moment, no longer chasing after external phenomena. When confronting lustful thoughts, practice the observation of ultimate reality, examining the true nature of the mind's intentions. When distracting thoughts arise, do not fight against them, nor follow them. Simply observe their arising and passing away calmly, like watching clouds roll and unfold. Most importantly, cultivate prajñā wisdom to understand the emptiness nature of all phenomena. When you truly understand that all phenomena in the world are like dreams and illusions, lustful thoughts will also lose their power. A younger monk raised his hand and asked, "Master, if we are already entangled by these three defilements and find it difficult to escape, what should we do?" The old monk responded gently, "There's no need for worry, nor for self-blame. Every practitioner will undergo these tests. The key is not to give up or become discouraged. You can approach it from the following aspects. First, recognize that this is a normal process and do not develop self-denial or shame because of it. Secondly, seek the help and guidance of virtuous friends. Do not face difficulties alone. Thirdly, proceed gradually and steadily without seeking quick success. Cultivating the path is like rowing against the current. If you do not advance, you will retreat. However, as long as you persevere with unwavering dedication, you will surely achieve results. Finally, remember that the invincible way of Bodhisattva Nagarjuna is not to combat lustful thoughts, but to transcend them. By seeing through its essence with the eye of wisdom, it will naturally lose its power. As the sun set in the west, the old monk's narration drew to a close. He looked around at the assembled disciples and earnestly said, "Children, the story of Bodhisattva Nagarjuna teaches us that the obstacles on the path of practice are not enemies but teachers. It is precisely by overcoming these obstacles that we can attain true wisdom and liberation. The three major obstacles of verbal lust, mental lust, and intentional lust may seem frightening, but in truth, they're the best aids for us to understand ourselves and elevate our mind and character. Remember, practice is not to become a flawless person, but to see one's true nature clearly. When you are able to accept your imperfections and transform them with wisdom, you have already embarked on the path to liberation. May the radiant wisdom of Bodhisattva Nagarjuna illuminate your path of practice, and may you all transcend the three obstacles, reaching the other shore of wisdom and compassion." In the twilight, the monks expressed their gratitude to the teacher and each returned to their meditation chambers to continue their practice. They understood that what they had just heard was not merely an ancient story, but also a guiding light illuminating the path ahead. In this noisy world, the wisdom of Bodhisattva Nagarjuna continues to quietly spread, helping countless individuals troubled by desires to find inner peace and freedom. As the venerable monk said, the obstacles on the path of practice are never enemies to be defeated, but teachers to be transcended. When we learn to see through the nature of desire with the eyes of wisdom, we could transform afflictions into bodhi and attain true liberation.